highly anticipated sequel to 2016's Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, released into theaters this weekend, bringing along with it all the typical Marvel fare. This film marks the first introduction to the multiverse into the MCU, contradicting all the prior set rules of the previously established first depictions of the multiverse. But does the film reconcile all these various rules of the multiverse and deliver a satisfying resolution to fans? Let's get into it. Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Jed Morgan, and there was a time that I implicitly loved everything Marvel gave me, consuming it no matter the actual intrinsic value of the product. But those days are behind me, and I can see this film for the mediocre affair that it is. The best way to describe In the Multiverse of Madness is spectacle over substance, albeit with third-rate CGI and more at home in 2005 than 2022. All the film sequences, both action and dialogue-based, are cobbled together in the most uninspired manner imaginable, just to deliver as much into the audience's retinas as possible, while never truly saying anything. The empty and vapid nature of which this film espouses is exemplified in every frame of this flashing and exciting narrative. It was as if the writers believed that the audience were toddlers, enthralled with the flashing lights and pretty colors, the most primal parts of their undeveloped minds held captive with the visuals. All the basics of character writing, plot development, and narrative consistency were cast aside or were never within the writer's abilities. Only one character has anything even slightly resembling an arc, and that arc consisted of 2 lines said back to back, creating a 15-second long arc. That is the best this film has to offer in terms of character motivation and development. Otherwise, the characters are merely vessels upon the sea, blown in whichever direction the writers require of them, their personalities, motivations, and desires cast aside at the earliest convenience for the smallest of shock value. Shock value is not an excuse for lazy or inconsistent writing, as The Last Jedi epitomized. Every character was told to the audience to be one thing, but shown to them as another. When show and tell do not match, there is no basis for the audience to connect with the characters or truly care what happens to them, hero or villain. There came one sequence halfway through the movie when it appeared that the writers had realized their mistake, having forgotten development. So the most plot-convenient bullshit imaginable was their solution to this temporary dilemma. Doctor Strange and America Chavez literally walk down a road and accidentally step on a path that displays the most plot-relevant memories onto a screen for both to see, delivering their backstories to both the audience and their partner. This is what the writers of In the Multiverse of Madness deem as talent and proper delivery of backstory? A plot convenience memory projector appearing out of nowhere? Unfortunately, this may be the best writing that the film offers, because it can't deliver good dialogue, even in the easiest scenes either. Cheesy lines and cringy deliveries are numerous throughout this film, only servicing to make the audience recoil from the atrocity that had been put to page and screen. Despite all this, many Marvel consumers have been overjoyed and thrilled with this mediocre fare, their logical minds overwhelmed by the flashing colors, big action, and pretty people. And spoilers ahead. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness begins with a random MacGuffin girl getting chased by monsters for some nefarious purpose. This girl, America Chavez, finds her way to Doctor Strange and begs for his help. Hunted at every turn, this unlikely duo must race through the multiverse to escape their hunters. Universe to universe they run, encountering many cameos and references along the way, culminating in a final battle on top of a snowy mountain as the now evil Wanda Maximoff attempts to steal America's power so that she may travel the multiverse herself in search of her lost children. Doctor Strange must use the Darkhold to hold Wanda at bay long enough for America to be positively affirmed and unleash her power! Using her newly controlled abilities, America shows Wanda the consequences of her actions. Her children will never love the monster that she has become. Wanda allows the heroes to escape before crushing the temple on top of the mountain down upon herself to protect the multiverse from her. Her death left ambiguous enough to appear in any potential sequel. The final moments of the film end with Doctor Strange convulsing in a city street, a third eye ripping itself out of his forehead. the consequences of the use of the Darkhold. That's it. That's really it. This rather one-note story offers very little but the occasional intriguing visual or shoehorned cameo. No character or dialogue offers anything of worth to the story or the audience. The plot may be thin and the dialogue atrocious, but in the Multiverse of Madness dips from the realm of mediocre into the horrific when it comes to its characters. The assassinations and mortal filmmaking sins committed with them are reprehensible and deserve the ire of all fans. Everything else may be forgiven, but what they did to these beloved characters cannot be. Now that we know some of my thoughts, let's check in with fans and critics. These scores are actually better than I even expected because from what I've been hearing, this film was not being universally loved as much as most of the other Marvel movies, but these scores are not reflective of that. They're actually pretty good. The critic score did raise a little bit. It was quite a bit lower earlier in the week, but it seems to have raised. And, Marvel is always going to be consumer friendly. People are always going to love it intrinsically no matter what, at least for the time being. So, I can't judge anyone for just blindly loving everything Marvel, especially after everything we've gotten, but I really didn't like this film. But let's take a look at what these individual people have to say. Good Twitch that popped up early. Loved the cameos. Movie never dragged. Oh yeah, that's the big thing. It was like a 6-hour movie condensed. There was no breathing. No moment was allowed to breathe and give the impact that it needed. It was so fucking rushed and felt like really 6 different movies cobbled together and Frankenstein monstered. Had higher expectations, but overall good movie. Would have been nice to see other characters. Yeah, a lot of people were disappointed that there were actually less cameos than people expected. Amazing. The most Raimi movie since Army of Darkness. Must see. I definitely don't agree with that. 5 stars is insane for something like this. Really loved this movie. As a huge Scarlet Witch fan, it showed her how her desperation would override her morality when it came to the amount of loss she suffered. Just wish they would have made a point to include the loss of Pietro as well. Yeah, the loss of Pietro and Vision needed to be a part of that story. He wasn't in it, but he was a huge part of why she did Westview. He's the reason she created Westview. But as soon as she got the kids, fuck him. It's like, that was your whole motivation to start with. White Vision definitely needed to show up, or at least be talked about more than one throwaway line. Awesome movie. Wow, these are all positive. I loved it. Just be warned, don't take your liddies unless they are used to seeing scary movies. Yeah, the horror aspects of it were quite good, and there was quite a lot of them. Let's see if the all audience has anything else. Multitude of shittiness. I love all audience. Wow, that's a lot better. Visually beautiful. Still mostly positive though. And the top critics, their score is quite a bit lower, but let's read some of these. Despite his sorcerer bona fides and voluminous cape, Cumberbatch's Doctor Strange is strange enough, and trying to parse the convolutions of the Marvel multiverse is more exhausting than engaging. I don't agree with that, actually. It was bare bones multiverse. Like, it didn't really explore the idea of what a multiverse would actually look like, and it didn't explore the concept. It was very surface level. Cumberbatch brings a lot more intensity. As for story points, I saw nothing that answers to that description. All we get is a grab bag of oddments. Yep, I agree with that. I'm thinking of a moment in the original movie in which Stephen looks skeptically at a deeply corrupted individual nattering about the greater good, and he retorts, "No, I mean, come on, look at your face." No one says that in the sequel, but they should. Yes, there are several times when he should have condemned people, especially Wanda. He needed to condemn Wanda for her actions, but he never did. Too often, Doctor Strange is muddled, sluggish, and ordinary. I agree, it was a lot more ordinary than you'd expect from something like that. A lot more negative in the top critics than the all critics. Nothing jumps out there. But yeah, it's kind of interesting to see how I fit into all of this. My score is way lower than all of these. And I do rate myself differently than most people, but still, it's like, I can't believe the audience thought it was 89% after the damage they did to a lot of these characters. But, either people are consumers or maybe I overthink things, but that's just really how I feel about it. But Multiverse of Madness had a $200 million budget, which means it needs to make at least $400 million at the box office just to break even. That's a lot of fucking money. So that's a really long ways to go. But it is starting out very, very strong with 36 million Thursday night box office. And Thursday is usually less than half of what Friday and Saturday get. So if you chart that out, it's looking at well over $100 million opening weekend, which is near double what the 3 previous Disney Marvel movies did last year, and it 8th highest grossing preview performance ever. So it's doing very well, at least for the initial box office. It'd be interesting to see how it plays out in the end after the full weekend. But 400 million, getting a 100 million in your first week, that's not a bad start. So I think it's going to make its money back. I think it might even cross $1 billion, but we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. I just don't think it deserves it, but that might just be me. I know it sounds like I fundamentally hated this movie, but there were some things that I really did enjoy. The chief among these positives were the horror elements. In the Multiverse of Madness excelled whenever it allowed Sam Raimi to dip into his horror past and deliver such fear-filled and gripping visuals of twisted, mangled horror. From the zombie Doctor Strange helming an army of ghosts, to Wanda tearing herself from a reflection in homage of The Ring. The horrific visuals show a talented director struggling for air beneath the unbearable weight of possible studio interference and a mediocre to terrible script. These moments were, unfortunately, few and far between, not being enough to redeem this movie.
You break the rules. You become a hero. I do it. I become the enemy. It doesn't seem fair.
Despite her turn to the dark side and the horrific deeds that she commits within this film, including the murder of dozens, if not hundreds of people, the film and the characters within it cannot bring themselves to condemn Wanda for her actions in Westview. This film is the only thing that could have possibly retroactively made WandaVision slightly better. However, with its aversion to saying that she was wrong or unjustified in her decisions, it continues to paint Wanda as a victim throughout the events of this film and WandaVision. In the Multiverse of Madness comes across as schizophrenic, as it constantly tries to paint her as a victim, but also as this terrifying, unstoppable force that slaughters everyone within her path before ultimately deciding to kill herself. Allegedly. With this inconsistent portrayal and view of its primary antagonist, the entire bedrock of the film wavers at every turn, continually ripping the audience out of its immersion and constantly reminding them of the behind-the-scenes realities of modern-day Hollywood. In the Multiverse of Madness continues the trope of male Marvel heroes being unable to defeat their female villains. They must either defeat themselves or be defeated by another woman, as shown in both Ragnarok and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. A talented writer can make the audience simultaneously relate with the villain's motivations, a la Thanos, while also condemning their actions in perpetuity. These writers do not have the talent to do so, as they constantly positively affirm Wanda using every character at their disposal, with lines like, "You're justified," "It's not your fault," and "You're the best Avenger." The film constantly paints Wanda in a positive light, before depicting her brutally slaughtering dozens of people. This dichotomy cannot be rectified with the talent of those mediocre writers. The result is a disaster. I used to love Wanda. She was one of my favorite Avengers. And I don't like seeing her as the villain after everything she's gone through. But given a talented writer and a gradual character arc to the dark side, I could have been won over. As it stands, Wanda has been character assassinated by ineptitude and by modern identity politics, leaving nothing but a shell of the former great character. America Chavez was bland in both writing and performance, offering nothing of note to the story. Before I get into my thoughts on America, I need to condemn the horrific harassment that Nochi Gomez has gone through as a result of taking this role. Primarily by those upset that her skin isn't dark enough, which is insane. She's a child who was offered a role in a Marvel movie. I would have made the same decision as her in her position. My comments on America do not reflect on Gomez whatsoever, and she does not deserve what she has gone through because of this role. The character of America was written with all the complexities of paint drying. Despite this, she has the closest thing to an arc for any character in the entirety of the film. The whole film, she believes she cannot control her powers. Then at the end, Doctor Strange just says, "Oh, but what if you can? Wink, wink." Then she's like, "Oh, maybe I can. I'm like awesome." That's the best the film and this character has to offer. Beyond her blandness and this shade of an arc, This story refuses to elaborate on her backstory, which is vital information to understanding the struggle of the story. It neither explains her powers, nor how she got them. America says she's the only version of herself in the infinite multiverse, which is impossible, unless the film is postulating that the utopian dimension, from which America comes from, is separate from the multiverse, which is why she has her abilities. However, the film does not say this, so this fan theory is doing far more work than the film itself, to explain the fundamental motivation and origin of the conflict of the narrative. Additionally, the inciting incident for her character is she goes to a garden and sees a bee, so she kills her parents! I struggle to contain my laughter. A bee lands on this girl, so she opens up a portal to another universe and gets sucked through. That's the terrifying incident that awakened her powers? A fucking bee? Didn't even fucking sting her! America also struggles with her morality. She judges the first Doctor Strange that we temporarily see in another universe for deciding to kill her to save the entire multiverse. She cries and says, "But I thought we were friends." Despite having made this decision, that initial Doctor Strange gives his final breath to save her from the monster that they're fighting. She still hates him and fears the primary Doctor Strange because of this, neither understanding what is at stake, nor being grateful that he gave his final breath to save her. But at the end of the film, she makes the same decision as the initial Doctor Strange, and asks the primary Strange to do the same, not realizing that she must forgive the initial Doctor Strange retroactively because she made the same decision in the end. Beyond all this, the writers used her character as a vehicle for several throwaway pieces of political propaganda that are blink and you miss them, so they are not vital to her character or the greater story. These references include the comment that most universes are socialist and that food is free there, the reference to her lesbian parents, which isn't a big deal, and the addition of a pride flag themed pin on her jacket. If she is indeed from a utopian dimension, made perfect by the absence of men and the prevalence of lesbianism, completely separate from the multiverse, why would she know Spanish? Why would she have the same pride flag that we do? Or why would she understand that lesbians aren't as common as she's used to? She shouldn't have a national or pride-themed identity if she's both an alien and from a different universe. These are all minor things that don't really affect the overall story, but without the benefit of a well-written character, they do stick out more than they otherwise would. Wong is by far the best and most consistent part of In the Multiverse of Madness. I can always use me some badass Wong. His character makes all logical decisions based on his pre-established personality, becoming a rare, consistent character within this otherwise schizophrenic narrative. Whenever he was on screen, I felt myself actually getting excited and happy to see what decisions he would make. He was the only character that incited this within me. At this point, I would love to see a Wong standalone movie. I don't really have anything to say about Christine because Rachel McAdams was given nothing for the role. Second only to America in Nature, Christine is the epitome of a plot device character. She has no arc or personality beyond what the writers need from her moment to moment. It's a pity that such a talented actress was relegated to such a non-existent character.
The Illuminati will see you, Stephen. Oh, that's something.
The many cameos in the film were forced and written with the complexity of a 2-year-old banging their action figures together saying whoosh whoosh. The film's treatment of Mr. Fantastic was its greatest sin, an affront to both basic concepts of writing and storytelling, and also an affront to comic book lore and fans. The smartest man alive, an infinitely smart being, would have contingencies upon contingencies, and would have a better plan than, let's punch the super powerful witch that just wiped out an entire army of Ultron drones. The smartest man alive would also not tell the same insanely powerful witch that the only way they have to beat her is this one guy next to him when he talks. The smartest man alive looks at the bad guy, points at his greatest weapon and says, you know, he's like the only thing that can hurt you. He's our best weapon, but he's also our greatest weakness in the mouth area. Just stand there and let him do his thing. That is straight up retarded. If he had not done that dumbass thing and told the villain exactly how to beat them, they may have been able to kill Wanda before getting wiped out. The smartest man alive would also not, after seeing his friend's brains exploded from the inside, go to punch this insanely powerful witch. A punch is not going to do anything against an insanely powerful witch that can rip apart reality at will. Mr. Fantastic is too smart for this. Beyond mischaracterizing Mr. Fantastic entirely, In the Multiverse of Madness also robbed the audience of ever truly caring about his character again. They've seen him stupid, weak, and murdered. An audience does not forget seeing such a vital character to the future of a cinematic universe getting thoroughly debased like this. It would be as if Captain America was introduced in the first Iron Man movie before being bitch-slapped by Obadiah Stane and murdered, while being mocked and laughed at by everyone, including Tony. After that, no one would give a shit about him in the first Avengers movie. You don't start out a fundamental hero's introduction with such an affront. This decision is a stain on both basic storytelling concepts and the entirety of Marvel Comics. In the same vein as Mr. Fantastic, though not to the same extent, this film's treatment of Professor X was also abysmal. Treating him as so weak and inconsequential before brutally murdering him, for what feels like the 100th time, only services to tear down Marvel's old characters to prop up its new ones. The most powerful telepath in the world would last longer than 30 seconds against Wanda. The only reason that their treatment of Professor X is slightly better than their treatment of Mr. Fantastic is that we've seen decades of magnificent portrayals of Professor X previously. It's not his introduction per se. All this was done for cheap shock value. Destroying your past for cheap shock value in the most underwhelming ways possible is no way to endear yourself to the audience, nor respect what came before, as The Last Jedi found out the hard way. Besides Wong, the only consistent character that was not assassinated also happens to be the most hated. Captain Marvel escaped this film unscathed, completely consistent with their Brie Larson counterpart. The arrogant and self-righteous bitch that everyone hates is the most undamaged of the characters in the film. What does that say about the film's general quality or writer's talent? The remainder of the supporting cast and cameos were fleeting additions to the film that offered nothing of note. Every other side character was either ignored or thoroughly debased and assassinated for the aforementioned shock value, including the long-awaited return of Chiwetel Ejiofor's Baron Mordo, whose story was in no way continued from the first Doctor Strange, and who ended the film stuck in a hole! One of the primary characters from the first film, who was set up to be a primary antagonist going forward, was defeated by putting him in a fucking hole. Besides that, Haley Atwell is an international gem, so I'm glad she's getting more work, but she deserves so much better than what this film had to offer.
Things just got out of hand.
There's not much to say about Doctor Strange because the film didn't have much to say about Doctor Strange. The title character of In the Multiverse of Madness is relegated to a supporting role in his own film, while having nothing even slightly resembling an arc, motivation, or consistent character portrayal. Beyond the lack of attention given to his character, the biggest issue with Doctor Strange in this film is his skewed morality, because neither the film nor his character can condemn Wanda for her actions in Westview. Because neither the film nor his character can condemn Wanda for her actions in Westview, he is condoning her actions, and by extension, accepting some of the blame and moral repercussions for her allowing her to do what she did. He admits that he knew what she was doing, but also knew that she would put it right in the end. That was never in question. So Doctor Strange believes that it's okay to kidnap and enslave thousands of people, including children, as long as he realizes it's not okay in the end. If he is so morally reprehensible, why should the audience care about him as a protagonist or as a character? If he believes that what Wanda did was justified in Westview, what else does he believe is justified? What other lengths will he go to in the future? We can no longer trust in his desire or his portrayal of being a hero. More so a criticism of the writing and the general plot, but the film's cliffhanger leaves much to be desired. The film ends with Doctor Strange screaming in a street as a third eye rips its way through his forehead. This leaves the audience to question, how will he get out of this? How will he overcome this new trial? Will he remain a good person despite these changes? These intriguing questions and the benefits of having a cliffhanger in a story are near immediately thrown out the window as the post-credit scene shows Doctor Strange completely in control of his third eye and fine. Why end on a cliffhanger if you're just going to immediately fix it? There was no point in ending it there now. So far, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is the best Disney Marvel addition to Phase 4, which isn't saying much at all. With this addition to the MCU, The MCU's future is murky at best. But hopefully this juggernaut can course correct and once again become the fan favorite crowd pleaser that it once was. But we'll have to wait and see. I'd have to give this film like 5 out of 10. But anyway, that's all I have for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you on the next video. Anon. If you like what I do here and want to see good, compelling stories that Hollywood will no longer give you, check out my book series, Odyssey of a Phoenix, a mythological epic about philosophy, morality, and modern-day mental illness issues. Books 1, Down in Flames, and Book 2, Apocalypse Then, currently on sale. Book 3, Kill the Dark, coming soon.